Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch of Crime Talk, and I'm fired up. First on the docket, Lori Vallow, more delays. Second, new Jacob Blake matter facts, why the officer won't be charged. Third, why officers shoot so many times. Fourth, R. Kelly experiences a little jailhouse justice or injustice, you decide. An honor-killing suspect is arrested after a 12-year manhunt, our cold case of the day, and our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day. My name is Scott Reisch, and this is Crime Talk. First, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and leave me a comment below. Now, as I said, I'm fired up. Why am I fired up, you may ask? Because guess what? Remember our video that we put out yesterday? If you've watched it, you saw that we discussed the Jacob Blake matter in Kenosha, Wisconsin. That's right. And now the video has this, the following warning. Warning, the following content has been identified by the YouTube community as inappropriate or offensive to some audiences. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's a first for me that we've ever had. And now YouTube has placed an age restriction on the video, which guess what? We already say we don't put our videos out for people under the age of 18. So what this really means is somebody didn't like the video. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You don't have a right to not be offended. Let me just put this warning up. The content that you find here could be inappropriate or offensive to some people. My guess is, based upon the comments that I see, someone's going to be offended about anything we put up or we say. So let me just put this out there. If you come to this channel and you want to discuss true crime issues, if you want to discuss legal matters as they relate today, stay subscribed. If you don't, if you only want to hear the opinion that you think you want to hear and live in an echo chamber, maybe this is not the right channel for you. We talk about the facts. We talk about how the facts are applied to the law. And guess what? Sometimes you come up with an answer or a conclusion that you may not like, but it's called the law. And just because it doesn't fit your narrative doesn't mean that the law should be ignored. If you don't like the law, you go change it, but you don't just get to ignore it. I, as a practicing attorney, have lots of laws that I don't agree with. There are lots of rules that I don't agree with, but guess what? I'm a realist and I have to follow them. So, once again, if you think you may be offended by talking about criminal law matters in the news, and you may actually see a video that may even be on the evening news, guess what? You're going to see it here, and if you're offended, now's the time to leave. First on the docket, Lori Vallow. That's right, for all those sensitive ears, Lori Vallow has been accused of killing her two children, Tylee and JJ, and she is charged with the delay and destruction of evidence related to the bodies of her two children found on the property of her now new husband, number 5, Chad Daybell. Now, for YouTube or those who are offended, those are facts. Those are facts, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you like them or not, or it's sad that people have passed away, which I agree that it is, but those are facts. And guess what? Lori Vallow has asked, and the judge has granted, a continuance of her arraignment until September. The new date is September 10th. We talked about this, I think, Tuesday night. I hadn't seen the order. Now I've found the order, September 10th. Wasn't aware of it. The attorney for Lori Vallow has also filed her responses to requests for disclosures, and they're complete nonsense. Now, don't get me wrong. As a criminal defense attorney, my position is you'll get it in accordance with the rules, and I'm not going to turn it over a moment sooner. That's the way the process goes. His comments are evasive and provides no new information whatsoever. I was particularly interested in the section regarding whether there would be any mental defenses or expert witnesses. None have been disclosed as of yet. Lori Vallow's attorney, Mark Means, also refused to answer any questions about potential witness lists, basically stating that I'll turn it over later, and I can't do anything until I have received final discovery in the case, is what he told the state prosecutor in this particular case. So yet another delay, and I'm sure some people will be offended by the fact that there is additional delay. I get that. It can be frustrating. Frankly, I like to move cases along. Mr. Means may be thinking that he needs additional time based upon his motion where he is trying to seek a possible change of venue. That was his motion, that he requested additional 60 days in which to do that. Either way, the court granted it. Those are facts. We all have to deal with it, whether we do not like them at all. Like I said, I'm a realist. I deal with the facts and the law that are given to me. Next on the docket, the Jacob Blake matter. That's right. Jacob Blake is the man that was shot 7 times in the back by the police officers in response to a domestic violence call. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? New facts have been released. You think those rioters would have waited for the facts? No, they didn't, because, well, they like apparently to go out and burn and break things. So let's take a look at some of the new facts. As you may recall from our video yesterday, I did make a brief comment that there was some talk about a knife. It was unclear from the video. I even tried to slow it down quite a bit, but it looked like Mr. Blake had his shirt tucked in, and it was unclear from the shot that you could actually see a knife. I couldn't see a knife, but there was talk about that. But we didn't want to go into speculation because we didn't know for sure. Well, guess what? After 3 days of rioting in Kenosha, as well as protests by NBA teams and everyone else out there, guess what? The Kenosha police have revealed a little bit more information about what happened Sunday evening. It appears that the officers had been responding to a domestic violence incident in the 2800 block of 40th Street. Now, the Department of Justice has also got into this because they're doing their own investigation to see if anyone's civil rights, i.e. Mr. Blake's civil rights, had been violated. But according to the Department of Justice, they're stating that when the officers arrived at the residence after a woman called police and said that her boyfriend, presumably Mr. Blake, was present and was not supposed to be on the premises, i.e. protection order, i.e. the previous case where Mr. Blake had been charged, and apparently there's still an outstanding warrant for those charges dating back to July. There is report that the dispatcher told officers that there was an alert for the person wanted at that address for some unknown reason, more than likely a warrant. Now, Blake had a warrant issued for his arrest after he was charged with third-degree assault, trespassing, and disorderly conduct with a domestic matter in July, as we discussed. The facts of that particular allegation have not been released, but the Department of Justice has not revealed the facts regarding the underlying domestic violence case. However, police are reporting that officers had attempted to arrest Mr. Blake when they arrived on scene. The officer who arrived, Rustin Shesky, who is a 7-year veteran with the Kenosha Police Department. Officer Shesky is the one who fired the weapon into Mr. Blake's back 7 times. And according to the video, Officer Shesky shot Mr. Blake while holding on to his shirt after officers first unsuccessfully tried to taser him. Now, Officer Shesky was the only officer who opened fire on Mr. Blake. None of the officers were wearing any type of body cam because the police department doesn't have them. Huge mistake, in my opinion, by the city. They should get those body cams as quickly as possible. Now, Mr. Blake apparently had admitted to investigators that he had a knife in his possession when he spoke with investigators from the Department of Justice. State police also recovered a knife from the driver's side floorboard of the vehicle. No other weapons other than that knife were located. You cannot see anything on the video where Mr. Blake threatens anyone with a knife. Now, the man who actually filmed the video of the shooting stated to police that he heard officers shout, "Drop the knife, drop the knife," before they shot Mr. Blake. Now, Mr. Blake, as we stated, was shot 7 times. He was immediately transported to the hospital where he is now paralyzed from the waist down. The prosecutors are apparently reviewing the video as well as statements by the police officers and Mr. Blake, and they will make a determination of what charges, if any, are appropriate. And as stated, the Department of Justice announced that it was launching a federal civil rights investigation into the shooting as well. The federal investigation will be a parallel investigation with the state, and they will share any information that they develop with state authorities. The fact that a knife was recovered and the officers were heard shouting, "Drop the knife, drop the knife," that means that the officers saw a knife. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The police, just like anyone else, has a right to defend themselves. Yes, it would be much better if we don't go around shooting people 7 times in the back. However, in this particular situation, if I was a betting man, I would say that the officer will not be charged in this matter. There's no doubt in my mind that Officer Shesky will state that he saw a knife, that he felt as though his life was in danger for not only death, but serious bodily harm. And the shooting, although one would say excessive, we're going to have a story next about why police shoot so many times. Don't think Officer Shesky is going to be charged. Let me know what you think. Do you think the officer should be charged or not? Next on the docket, why do officers shoot so many times? We've all heard of cases, including the matter recently in the news in Kenosha, Wisconsin, about why do the officers shoot so many times. In that particular case, Mr. Blake was shot 7 times in the back at close range by an officer. Why? Well, let's take a look. The textbook answer for why officers shoot so many times is they shoot until they believe that the threat has been terminated. Officers usually use deadly force on a suspect they believe to be an imminent threat of death or bodily harm to the officers or others. In training, in fact, police are told to use force until that person no longer presents a threat. Now, that may seem excessive to you, but if you're the one that is dealing with somebody who wants to harm you or kill you, that oftentimes may seem completely appropriate depending on the perspective that you are actually in. And oftentimes, the number of shots that it'll take to terminate a threat clearly depends on the circumstances. Sometimes firing many shots makes sense. Other times, it may not make sense. If an officer is using deadly force, police are usually trained to not pause their fire and shoot in quick succession, taking a break to assess the suspect they're shooting at, because that could give the suspect time to hurt the officers or others that the officers are in fact trying to protect. And most police training officials will tell you that the number of shots officers fire doesn't matter. Under the Fourth Amendment, officers have to have a reason to believe that the suspect that they fired on was a threat who could have killed them or caused great bodily harm. The court will often determine whether officers were reasonable in making that assessment, not whether the number of shots was in fact reasonable. So threat equals oftentimes fire as many times as you need to. Another reason why there are oftentimes so many shots fired when police engage a suspect is that multiple officers all shoot at once. So high shot counts can be attributed to a phenomenon called sympathetic fire or reflex fire. And this occurs when officers fire on a suspect, so one or more officers with them start firing as well. And you don't know exactly what the threat is, but you know that somebody's firing. Obviously, this can create confusion, not only among the officers, but the suspects and bystanders. And the more rounds fired by the officers makes the officers believe that the suspect is firing, which the officers perceive as warranting more shots being fired. I guess it makes some sense. You would think that the police officers who train and qualify with their firearms would be much more accurate. But a police study by the Dallas Police Department found that in more than 130 shootings, officers struck their targets only 35% of the time. Makes you wonder where all those other rounds are going. And in 2006, there was an analysis which examined a number of major metropolitan departments' shootings throughout the 1980s and the 90s. And that study found that hit rates rarely exceed 50%. Now, some departments, including New York Police Department in the 1990s, could only hit 23% of their targets. Is that to say the police officers are terrible shots? Not necessarily. If anyone's ever had to fire a firearm in a stressful situation, it's not like going to the firing range where you get to get your good position and stance, get your good sight picture and sight alignment, and then gently pull the trigger. It's stressful. It's happening in a matter of seconds. And that's one of the reasons why so many shots are fired. The next reason why officers shoot so many shots is that they're often stressed and they're not counting the shots that they're actually firing. It's not uncommon for police officers, when giving their statements, believe that they only fired, say, 3 to 4 shots, when in actuality, they could have cleared their complete magazine of 10 or even 15 rounds. Because in these high stress, high adrenaline, heart-pounding situations, officers are not sitting there counting the number of shots that they have actually pulled the trigger on. It's also not uncommon for anyone, not only police officers, who believe that they're in imminent danger, that they simply just keep pulling the trigger until kind of their brain or the situation catches up with them and they realize that, okay, the threat has been eliminated. Another factor to consider is the weapons that people are using today. Most police officers are using semi-automatic weapons, and you can fire as many as 15 rounds in a matter of a few seconds. There's also a lack of training, which can explain why so many shots can be fired so quickly in these type of situations. If anyone's ever seen a lot of police officers, even a simple interaction with a member of the community, if the officers appear that they are threatened or that the person could be a threat in any way, you see them immediately go to put their hand on their firearm. It somewhat escalates the situation, and that's really a matter of training. If anyone has ever had to, and I think it's the best example that I can really think of, is if you've ever had to hire a bouncer in a bar. Do you want the big, heavy set guy that can, handle his own? Yeah, that's a great attribute. But you really want somebody that can talk. You want a talker. You want somebody that can de-escalate, that's not going to turn to violence at the first incident. You don't want somebody that's going to turn to violence at the first comment that's made. You want somebody that can talk the situation and de-escalate it. So each situation is different. You cannot say that the police officer fired a certain number of rounds and therefore it was excessive force, or you can't say that they only fired a round or two and that was completely okay. We know that's not the case. Like everything in the law, it depends on the facts. And yes, you have general rules in the law, but guess what? The first thing they teach you in law school is there's always an exception to the rule. So you must look at each case and the facts of each case on their own individual merit. You can't say the police are always right, and you can't say the police are always wrong. You have to be intellectually honest and be willing to look at the facts as they stand. You can't ignore the facts you don't like, because guess what? Your opponent will always be giving you those facts you don't like in response to everything that you say to them. So let's be a little intellectually honest and let's look at all the facts. I do believe that the officer in the Jacob Blake case is not going to be fired, given the fact that they found a weapon. Do I think the city is still going to write a big check to Mr. Blake and his children? Yes, I do. All right, let's take a quick recess. Ladies and gentlemen, We have talked about this and we've received so many positive comments. That's why we continue to have this relationship. Please go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up for your no risk, cancel at any time background search subscription. That's right. And when you sign up, you can search anyone you want in the United States and you can do it anonymously. No one's going to know you're looking up that information. But literally, while you wait, a report will be generated and millions of documents across the United States, public records will be searched, and you will be able to know in a matter of minutes a person's social media information, phone numbers associated with this particular individual, emails associated with this particular individual. So if you're receiving emails from someone you don't know, you want to look it up, you can help find that information there as well. In that report, you're also going to find out if there is any criminal history, to include sex offender registration, bankruptcies, civil court judgments, marital records. We've had more people contact us where they were going to get involved with somebody, and guess what? The other person was married. Look into this information. In today's world, ladies and gentlemen, it is a dangerous world. What somebody says on a dating app is not always accurate. That's why you need to go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up for your background subscription search so that you can find out information about the people that you have or are going to have involved in your life. Go to CrimeTalkSearch.com. You'll be happy you did. Next on the docket, R. Kelly. That's right. You know, I Can Fly, Mr. R. Kelly, the singer, who's got lots of problems in Chicago and New York relating to exploitation of underage girls. Well, he's been in custody, and apparently there have been some protesters outside of the facility where Mr. R. Kelly is being housed in Chicago, specifically the Metropolitan Correctional Center in the city of Chicago. There are reports that an inmate went into the cell of R. Kelly and assaulted Mr. R. Kelly. Why, you may ask? Apparently, allegedly, the other inmate was upset that they had been placed on lockdown for a large time due to R. Kelly protesters outside of the jail. This, ladies and gentlemen, is jailhouse justice or injustice. You let me know what you think. Now, certainly we don't condone people going around getting beat up, but we're a realist. People in jail have their own system of justice. And if you do something that negatively affects the quality of life of other inmates, i.e. get in fight, get everybody put on lockdown, guess what? You're probably going to see the ramifications of that, the consequences of that actions. It happens. Had a guy once, a little jailhouse fight over a microwave, microwaving their little cup of noodles. You know, what's the logical thing to do if you have an argument? Go back to your cell, get a shank, and stab somebody multiple times. That's called assault with intent to commit murder in the federal system. And yes, you may go to the hole, and yes, you're going to be charged criminally, and it's a tough case to win because it's all on video. Your biggest concern is when you come out of the hole that the fellow inmates are going to be unhappy with you, and you're going to have to go check yourself in the hole for your own safety. Not to mention the friends of the victim may have a thing or two to say about it outside of the court system as well. Things are handled differently in the jail and prison system, ladies and gentlemen. This does not particularly shock me that Mr. R. Kelly was assaulted. He will apparently be okay. He was checked out by the doctor and nothing was broken. Next on the docket, an honor-killing suspect has been arrested after 12 years. That's right. The FBI has captured a man wanted in connection with the 2008 murder of his 2 teen daughters. Federal agents have arrested Yasser Abdel Said, 63, without incident in Justin, Texas. Mr. Said has been wanted on capital murder charges for the death of his daughters, Sarah Said and Amina Yaid. They were 17 and 18, respectively, at the time of their murders. Saeed had been on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitive list since 2014 after he shot his 2 daughters to death while inside a taxi in Irvine, Texas. Police from day one had called the killings that of an honor killing because the father was upset that his girls were dating non-Muslim boys. In this particular case, the girls thought they were going to dinner with their taxi driver father when the shooting occurred. Sarah managed to call 911 after the shooting. She pled for help, and she named her father as the shooter as she spoke to a 911 dispatcher. The girls were afraid of their father. He was described as controlling. This ultimately prompted their mother to flee with the girls to Oklahoma. However, days later, the mother was convinced that things would be okay, and despite the girls' pleas to stay away from their father, she and the girls returned home. Within a week of returning home, the girls were dead. The police were also aware of allegations that the father had been sexually abusing the girls as well. When Mr. Saeed was arrested, his son, Islam Saeed, and his brother, Yassim Saeed, who are also accused of helping him evade capture. Authorities believe that others may have aided in the hiding of Mr. Saeed, and further charges and arrests may be forthcoming. This just shows you, ladies and gentlemen, that the police are always working on these cases. Just when somebody thinks it's probably safe to go outside to try and resume a normal life, someone, somewhere has information about these particular cases. And now Mr. Saeed will have to defend his actions in a court of law. Let's take another quick recess. I told you the other day, ladies and gentlemen, that I had my garage burglarized the other day and a couple of bikes were stolen. And yes, it is annoying and it is frankly rather frustrating that somebody would do that. But it forces you to make decisions about your home protection. And what I was able to do was find SonaSafe. That's right, SONISAFE. And if you go to CrimeTalkAlarm.com, you can look at the information regarding this incredible home security system. From the time that you plug it in and set up the camera, it's literally just a few minutes. And the beautiful thing is that it costs less than most of the home protection security systems on the market. Why does it cost so much less? Well, that's because of the technology that comes with these cameras. It literally puts a layer of protection over your entire house, which eliminates the need for all the alarms and sensors that go on the windows, the doors. The alarm system can detect what's going on and alert you as well as the police. Do what I did. I found SonaSafe and I use it in my house. And in today's world, ladies and gentlemen, in the world of defunding the police or police response time being increased because they're dealing with so many other things going on in the world, at the end of the day, you are ultimately responsible for the safety of yourself and your family. The best way to do that is go to CrimeTalkAlarm.com and get SonaSafe. You'll be happy you did. Next on the docket, our cold case of the day. Now, just like the honor killing suspect, Mr. Saeed, people are always looking. Somewhere, someone knows about this information. And today, we want to talk to you about a cold case out of Wisconsin. In fact, it's out of Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now, take a look at this police composite of a male victim who was found dead near the Sioux Line Railroad tracks on the western side of Pleasant Prairie on August 27, 1993. This gentleman's body was discovered by a photographer walking in the area and was found to be in an advanced stage of decomposition. In this particular case, a reconstruction of the decedent's tattoos were performed. None of the work completed to date provided the identity of the victim or additional leads in this particular case. Take a look at the photographs of the tattoos. perhaps someone knows something about this individual. The tattoo is on the left forearm and had a large distinctive tattoo consisting of leaves, an overlapping panther's claw, and a snake. So take a look at this tattoo. Very distinct. Someone somewhere may know who the tattoo artist that inked this particular tattoo or know the individual that had the tattoo. So in December of 2014, the Kenosha County Medical Examiner's Office and police authorities involved in this case decided to submit this John Doe's skull to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification for a secondary forensic anthropology examination and DNA extraction. In June of 2016, University of North Texas officials notified the medical examiners that the tests conducted by the forensic anthropologist showed that the 1993 John Doe was a male between 40 and 60 years old, possibly of Hispanic, Native American, or Caucasian ancestry, or possibly a combination of these ancestries. The results of the DNA analysis were uploaded into the CODIS system as well as the FBI national database. Still, no one has been able to identify this particular individual. The Michigan State Police Biometric and Identification Division also performed a facial reconstruction of this John Doe in hopes that it would assist in identifying this decedent. Anyone with information regarding the identity of this John Doe is urged to contact the Pleasant Prairie Police Department at 262-694-7353 or the Kenosha Area Crime Stoppers 262-656-7333. And Kenosha's been a little busy these days, so it may take a couple of days to get a call back. Please, if you have any information, let's help solve this case. Next on the docket, ladies and gentlemen, that's right, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Take a look at this man. Obviously, we will give him the presumption of innocence. However, sometimes it gets hard to do. Anyway, meet Michael Stepanek. He's 45 years old, and apparently he was driving his Toyota Camry Friday evening in Iowa City when he got stuck behind another car due to protests in the intersection ahead of him. According to the complaint, Mr. Stepanek honked his horn before making a U-turn with his tires screeching as he made that turn. He then shut off his lights and drove around the block, turning on a street where there were no vehicles between him and the protesters. That's right. And instead of just simply driving away to get away from the protesters that were holding up the intersection, no. What would the logical person thing to do? Would it be to join in the protests? Or B, try to intentionally strike multiple protesters with your vehicles and then speed away? That's right. Mr. Stepanek chose option B. Well, not a smart move by Mr. Stepanek. That's right. He has been charged for barreling through the protesters and actually hitting them, one of which actually landed on the car's hood. Mr. Stepanek now finds himself a little more inconvenienced, more than just waiting for protesters. He's actually in the Johnson County Jail where he is being held on a $15,000 bond. Mr. Stepanek, I get it. Frustration, traffic, protests. They have a right to protest. You don't have a right to run them over and interfere with that protest the way that you did. You should just let it go. Clearly not worth it. And you may want to get into an anger management class so that you can use that for a little mitigation when your attorney presents his case to the district attorney as to why you should not go to prison. But now, Mr. Stepanek, your lack of complete self-control has made you a contestant on Crime Talk's Dumb Criminal Contestant of the Day and possible winner of Dumb Criminal Contestant of the Week. And if Mr. Stepanek wins, he will receive, that's right, a Crime Talk mug. Now, for those of you who want a Crime Talk mug or other Crime Talk merchandise, but don't want to become a dumb criminal contestant of the week or day to become that winner, go to the link below at Teespring, right down below there. That's right down there. Hit the link, get your own Crime Talk merchandise. That's all we've got for you today. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow on Crime Talk.